Hey y'all, my name is Bryant Young.
And Derek Chaney.
Here with the Decent Dads podcast, brand new episode. You're going to like this one, I promise.
This was a fun one. Dan Reiter hopped on the podcast today.
Yeah.
And naturally, him being the GM with the Springfield Cardinals.
Brought the fun, baby.
A lot of baseball.
Yeah, but also way more valuable dad hackness, more dad hacks per minute than any other guest we've ever had. The
Definitely.
big DPM on this one, DHPM, and I admire Dan. I admire the work that he does, and I now admire him as a parent, having heard him speak.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, several times in the episode, we're like, hold on, let me write this down. We're
I'm gonna
stealing
need to
this
take
from
notes.
you. But no, he did a great job. Lots of energy. I mean, like you said, it was a fun episode.
Yeah,
man.
I think you guys are going to like this one, and you're going to take a lot away from it. So I think we just jump right into this, man.
Let's do it.
All right, Decent Dads podcast. Here we go. Welcome back to the Decent Dads podcast. We're here to tell dad jokes, drink coffee, and build a community of dads navigating fatherhood together. I'm Bryant Young, fearless leader, co-host, girl dad, and your friendly local insurance agent based out of Springfield, Missouri. And now, before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome the coolest co-host with the most, a fantastic soon-to-be father of three, and the home loan expert. Folks, put your hands together and welcome the incomparable Mr. Derek Chaney. How are you, Derek?
Doing well, man. Dan, I don't know if you need a play-by-play guy for the Cardinals this season,
no,
but
it did sound like a tryout.
It's
right?
more like a monster truck. It's more like the monster truck guy.
Yeah,
like
right until you got to his name, and then you totally went weak. It's like you had all the hype built up, and then you
He's
failed
like,
it at the end.
What can I say?
But
Hard to finish.
it's all good. It's still a good day for a good day.
It's a good day.
And we have an interesting hoppy coffee combination.
Yeah, we do.
Today,
We got some combo coffee going today, and these coffees are actually brought to you by our friends at Buff Studio, the official coffee sponsor of the Decent Dads podcast. Right. Buff Studio is a full-service architecture, engineering, and design firm with offices in Bentonville, Arkansas, and Springfield, Missouri. Learn more at buffstudio.co. Thanks, Buff Studio, for your support of the podcast and Decent Dads everywhere. Buff Studio, be a buffalo.
Woo.
Thanks, Buff Studio.
Yeah. But kind of gave away a little bit about our guest there, but I'm super excited to have him on.
Yeah, baby.
So Dan Reiter decided to hop on the Decent Dads podcast. So Dan, we ask every dad. We know a little bit about you. Some dads might not. So if you will, tell us who you are, what you do. Give us your dad resume. Tell us how many kids you got, and which one's your favorite.
All right. I love that. Just going straight for the question. Who's your favorite one? It's a tough question. It's changed over time, but we'll get to that.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Hey, he's got an answer, sounds like.
Yeah. Dan Reiter. I work with the Springfield Cardinals. I have been there for 20 years.
I love
I
love that.
And again, that one job has given me unbelievable opportunities professionally, personally, through some of the best friends I have. I think if it wasn't for my job and the friendships I had from that, I would not have met my wife. We've been married now for 12 years.
That's great.
We have two kids, two boys that are 8 and 5. The 8-year-old Andy, he's my spirit animal.
Heck yeah, man.
He is.
I love that term.
Everything about him, he is my spirit animal. My wife will look at him like he's crazy, and I 100% understand what he's doing. And then our younger son Tyson is 5, and the part about Tyson is that people see Andy and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's crazy how similar you guys are." But Tyson is apparently exactly how I was as a kid. So I think my wife is the luckiest woman in the world to get 3 different versions of Dan Reiter. So lucky.
Spirit animal Dan.
Right?
Spirit animal Dan, me growing up as a kid
Dan, and
now 42-year-old
so
father
funny.
of 2 Dan.
Yeah, love it. That's awesome.
Man, yeah, that's so funny that you say that, because I feel like my oldest, Liam, like me and him are very, very similar right now in personalities. And my youngest, Brody, he's wild as can be. And I'm just like, man, he has to get that from Allie's side or something, because I feel like I'm a pretty laid back person. But then you talk to my mom, she's like, no, she's like, you were just as insane when you were 2, 3, 4-year-old as well too. So
yeah, well, it's fun too.
Funny how it changes.
We've only got the one, and Elsie is She's outgoing like me, but she's a feral person like my wife. Like
Feral.
it's like the perfect combination of things.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, like I have pictures of my wife as a child just running around with no shirt on, just mud all over her face, just tearing up the backyard, and that's very much what Elsie is now. But also
sounds like the Lost Boys. Right, like, all right, we made our own spears.
Yeah.
Hold
What's that movie they made,
What
or
do we gotta do?
that book they made us read in middle school, Animal Farm or whatever it was, where they were all abandoned on the island. Yeah,
I thought that was Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
One of my-
Yes.
yeah.
Two of us
Whatever.
read it.
Yeah,
anyways.
6-1. I was
Actually, I missed out a lot of books. I felt like for some reason, like I had new teachers coming in that didn't sign a lot of summer reading. So my sister's only 1 grade behind me in school, and she had like 3 times as much summer reading as I did. So that's one of the ones I'm aware of, but missed
I
out.
love it. Sounds like more time for summer baseball to me.
That's right.
So we ask every dad every time we come on the show about their tantrum of the day, because whether your kids are 2 months old, 2 years old, or 22 years old, they're probably having tantrums. I assume with your boys, they're a little bit past like true tantrum stage, but what are we dealing with in your house right now?
Yeah, so the latest one was actually our 5-year-old, and my wife sent me a video. They were getting ready to come to a baseball game, which I have loved, and they've grown up around Hammons Field, and the older one has really started to where he'll like dial in and focus.
Cool.
But both kids love being there, which I will say with my job and as a dad makes me feel really good.
Heck yeah.
Because I do miss bedtimes. Like that's the worst part about my job, clear cut, is the amount of bedtimes I miss because of baseball games. But now my kids love being there. So they're going to come to the game, and my wife sends me a video of our 5-year-old crying, saying that he doesn't want to sit outside. He wants to sit in the VIP. And
You've created a monster pal.
it broke my heart. As a kid that grew up either A, not being able to go to a lot of games,
Yeah.
or B, if
Yeah.
I was there, I was in nosebleeds.
Yeah.
To hear a kid crying that they want to sit in a suite just broke my heart.
Oh, that's so funny though.
Well, that part that gets attributed to my wife. Like, I'll just be honest.
There's
on
a little
that
bit of
one.
bougie in there, huh?
She knows that. She would admit that. She even says that the kids are like 95% me, with the exception they have blonde hair and blue eyes.
Yeah.
And the youngest one likes to sit in suites. So that's what they get from their mother.
So did he get to go sit in the suite then?
No,
So which room's getting
no, they were outside, and I love it. They get used to it, be okay with it. But once he gets there, he's fine.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
They love the sounds, the mascot, hot dogs, popcorn, like it's
Everything
the
going
good life
on.
for
Well,
him.
there's not a
They're
bad
lucky.
seat. There's not a bad
No.
seat in that stadium anyway. I mean, I love sitting GA out there. I mean, like when you could sit out in the outfield and just chill. Like that's
Yeah, we don't trust them out there yet.
Hey,
Good for you,
no,
man.
certainly not my 2-year-old. But yeah,
not,
I
not your
understand.
feral child.
Yeah, no, not at all. What about you, DC? What are you dealing with?
Well, it's funny. Mine involves baseball too, or t-ball.
Even better.
Yeah. So last episode I talked about how Brody and his tantrum involved not being able to play t-ball this year, and this week it's Liam, and he's getting kind of pissed off while he's playing t-ball.
Okay.
So he had his first game a couple weeks ago, and t-ball it's just a hot mess, anyways.
Sure.
And it cracks me up too. Like
Literal cat herding.
any ball that they hit, no matter where this ball's going, if it's down the first base line or whatever, all 10, 12, how many kids are out there, they all run to the same ball,
Yep.
right? And so Liam, they've hit a few balls, and he hasn't been able to get the ball yet. And so he's getting kind of frustrated, getting kind of upset. And I'm out there with him, and I'm just telling him, I'm like, well, you gotta run faster, you gotta be the first one to the ball, and go grab it and stuff. And most of these balls that are being hit, they're far away from him, so he's just naturally not the first one there. And so he's kind of upset, but he's kind of getting over it. Luckily, then they hit a ball and it comes right at him. And so he runs up there, and you can just tell like he's excited. He's like, I'm going to get this ball. Well, he doesn't get his glove all the way down to the dirt. The ball rolls right underneath his glove.
Oops.
Breaks his heart.
Gets the tweener.
I mean, he just like melts down right there in the field, and he's just like walking to the dugout, and his team's still out there on the field. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh,
Poor
there's
buddy.
Lots of teachable moments in here.
yeah, I'm like, oh, great, here we go. And that's he's just our big-hearted kid, and that's just kind of how he is. So like, I'm walking with him. I'm like, no, man, you gotta stay out here. You gotta keep trying. You'll get the next one. Like all this stuff, just kind of going down the list of things to say to him. None of it's working. And so finally, his team gets off the field, and he's sitting there in the dugout, still pouting. You're not really a tantrum, just more pouting more than anything. And he's last in the batting order. And so I'm trying to like pump him up, talk him up so that he'll get out there and go bat. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. I can't get the ball, all this stuff. So his turn comes around to bat, and finally I get him talked into going out there and batting, but he was too slow to get out there to bat, and the other team is walking off the field, and he'd like just put his helmet on, is like carrying his bat out there. The other team's walking
defenders.
out there.
Yeah, right. Perfect opportunity. Let's hit it right down the third base line.
So he wasn't able to hit the second time. So then that all just really broke his heart. And so, I'm trying to explain to him, I'm like, well, man, that's why you got to keep trying. You got to stay out there. And so we might have just ruined baseball for our child with his very first T-ball game. But
well, I don't want to get too deep into the woods here, but what do you mean he didn't have time? Are like hitting innings timed? What are we talking about?
Well, it's just like, or at least with our T-ball league, they have their batting order, and Liam was he was just pouting too long in between the kid that hit in front of him.
Got it. Okay. When you said he didn't have time, I was like, is there like a timer going or something that I missed?
It might not change. I'm coaching 8-year-old coach pitch, and our T-ball season starts up, so I'll coach both of those two ages. And this last game with 8-year-olds, I switched kids in the order of the lineup. It's like, how is everyone else ready to bat, and you're not ready to bat? You're dropped down until you're ready.
Sure.
Sure. 8 years old, and they're still fighting. I don't think that's going to change all the time.
Luckily, my parents were there. They were watching this game, and my dad did give me a little bit of good advice, I guess. And he just said it to me. He's like, man, I remember back whenever you'd play T-ball too. He's like, you'd get so pissed off and upset and pout about the little shit too. And he's like, you still stuck with it, so you're okay. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and you went on to play college basketball.
So yeah, what about you?
So we just got back from vacation, and we did not take the kid. She stayed with both sets of grandparents.
Legit,
couple days.
Well done.
Yeah,
Right,
it was awesome.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we spread it out. It was awesome. We got the opportunity to go to Mexico, which was even better. Way too close to the sun.
I'm looking at your nose now.
Yeah,
It's all making a lot of sense.
Way too close to the sun. My nose and forehead got a little too much sun the first day. I don't like to be that guy in the pool with a T-shirt on because I just don't want to be that guy. I was definitely that guy for the rest of the trip because I didn't want to get any more sunburns.
Well, I feel like if it's because of sunburn, then that's permissible.
Yeah, and that was where I was. I was like,
other than that, you got to let it all hang out.
it's
man.
where I am. Trust me. So I had the hoodie on.
Yeah.
Did you say that happened the first day?
That happened the first day.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm an
Nice.
idiot. But so we get home. We're flying in on Sunday night when all the storms were in Springfield, and so we were a full 4 or 5 hours behind where we were supposed to be because we had to circle Springfield for an hour and a half, fly to St. Louis to get more gas, and then turn around and come back so that we could then finally land in Springfield.
Wow.
It was fun, really great, loved it. But we get up the next morning. It's gone to bed at midnight the night before. Here comes Elsie at 6 o'clock in the morning because Grandma had put her to bed in her bed upstairs. Here comes Elsie at 5:36. All excited to see Mom. Patting Mom. Hey, Mom, you're home. Oh, Mom, you're home. Big old hug.
Oh, no.
I was like, Else, come here. Come give me a hug. She goes, no. And just takes off out of the room.
So you threw the tantrum.
So I immediately I'm like, God dang it. It's still happening. She's been doing this to me forever. And she gets a laugh out of the fact that it gets a rise out of me, which makes me think that she is my child because she's just trying to push buttons.
So she knows.
Yeah, she knows it bothers
At this
me.
point, she definitely
100%.
does.
And
That's
then
pretty funny.
So she and Liv get up, and I'm still in the room getting ready, and here comes Elsie a little bit later, like, Dad, can I have a hug? It's like, Mom didn't tell her to. She comes in and was ready to have a hug now, but she was just fucking with me before, and she just knew exactly what was going on.
Did you tell her no?
I almost
How's
did,
it feel?
But
How's it feel?
Do you like that?
I have not quite gotten the stones to pull that trigger yet.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between being a girl dad and a boy dad.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, boy dad, it's like, you want to battle? We're gonna battle.
Right.
You want to play this game?
I've honestly always been I thought that our first one, I just had it in my mind it was going to be a girl because all of my cousins were having girls.
Sure.
And then it was a boy. Cool, great. So the second one, great. Thought it was going to be a girl. Like, see all my friends that have daughters, and it is like the coolest relationship.
Yeah.
And then for both of our kids, we did gender reveal parties at the stadium. Shocking, Cardinals.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
But we actually put it up in front of, I think it was 4,000 people that had a sonogram that said it's a boy all at the same time. And when it was a boy, I shed a tear because it was like, I'm not gonna have a girl, because I always thought it was such a neat relationship. But I will say, the more that I've been into it, you start seeing some of those differences. And I am a believer that God gives you what you can handle. So my friends are all like, yeah, you didn't see this, but all of us can. Look, we do think you would have been just an absolute sucker with a girl, but you're also like, you're pretty wired to have two boys that are. Yeah.
Well, that was we talked about this early in the podcast, that like little boys will break your shit and little girls will break your heart. And that's just the way little kids are. And to your point, like I think I couldn't handle anybody breaking my shit, so I'm okay with my heart being okay.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. We got a lot of broken shit around our house, but it's all good.
Yeah, I was okay with that. I mean, we've got a lot of Cardinals bobbleheads and stuff, and I was like, this stuff is going to break. But I never moved it. I mean, when they were born, it was like, we're going to teach them not to do things, not move it, so it's out of sight, out of mind. And so we kind of didn't really
be aware of your surroundings.
No, we did. We tried to teach them up front, and versus being a parent that moved everything out of the way. But we've had a couple things. And my wife, Whitey Herzog's the hand broke on the bobblehead. She thought I'd lose it. I'm like, that's okay. Like they're kids. Like this is a part of
just stuff,
having fun downstairs. Yeah, it is. It's that perspective of your stuff becomes less important when you have important living creatures.
Yeah,
100%. 100%.
What about, Dan, the next thing we always ask everybody is maybe a good dad hack.
Dad hack alert!
That you want to share with the other dads, or maybe you have some good dad advice, like not moving your shit everywhere to appease your kids. But do you have anything like that you want to share with us?
Oh man, now you said that, and then it's like, okay, now I can really let's go. How many do we want to go with here?
Yeah, ring them in, baby.
First of all, I think that was when they were young, is making a choice to like, I'm excited to be a dad and want them a part of life, but to not upend your entire lifestyle. And I think when people do that, I always worry for them, because again, the vacation, my wife and I have made a point every year we're doing something for just the two of us.
Good for you.
And then a family vacation too. And so it's to keep
awesome.
that going. We didn't upend our house. Obviously you make some changes a little bit, you got to, but we really didn't. But I think the other part is that when dealing with your children, always win.
Always win.
And what I'm really,
no mercy.
Really funny concept. That's a really funny concept.
And what I mean on that is, like, when you decide to put your foot down and you're going to have a discussion with them, you have to win, because if they think they can overstep you, or they think that they're going to get their way, I just think it opens up Pandora's box. So
100%.
you can negotiate it with them, but when you have a decision, like, it's game over. And I can think of my wife watching me and my spirit animal argue, because we're so similar. Yeah,
button heads.
from a very young age.
Yeah.
And even this kid would be like 3 years old, and she would be like, look down at a book, look down at a cell phone, like, don't make eye contact with either one of them. and it was like, I was on a mission, like, no, I will win, because we're not going to set the precedent that you can do this.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. But now, again, when we're doing other stuff, like, you might let them win at a board game, and even that.
Yeah.
See, that's where my head went.
I still want him to earn it. I still want him to earn it, but I think there's a part of putting your foot down. The one that I was actually going to talk about, that I've been telling people, is teaching baseball. In one of our practices, I started using dodgeball to teach baseball, and it was unbelievable.
Really?
Cool. I want to hear all of this.
And the reason why is, like, I realized our kids didn't want to move their feet. They weren't trying to use their legs when they were throwing. So I just said, okay, we're going to play dodgeball. And I let the kids play dodgeball. They had a great time. And it kind of stems from, I've got 3 rules. My 3 rules in coaching are: listen good, try hard, have fun. And that way I don't have to yell, shut up. I ask, what's rule 1? And they say, listen good.
Yeah.
And it gives a more positive way of trying to tell, because kids aren't going to listen and talk. Yeah. Try hard, it's just like, again, I don't care if you get out, you run hard to first base. That's try hard. And number 3 is have fun. Well, I actually realized when coaching that it was like, I found myself repeating, what's rule 1, what's rule 2? And it was a good reminder for me to embrace the fun in rule 3. So I thought of the idea of dodgeball, and then the more I thought of playing dodgeball, I realized there's a lot of teachable moments for baseball. First of all, and so we played dodgeball, just let them play normal. Then I said, okay, now we're going to play for points. If you catch a ball, it's worth 5. And if you get someone out throwing, it's 1. Well, all of a sudden, then the kids would slide their feet over and try to catch the ball.
Change the motivation.
It did. And so they started moving their feet more, both playing catch and in the field. Well, then the same thing is, kids, when they're learning with their glove, they're kind of afraid of it. So instead of trying to catch it with just their glove in dodgeball, you catch with 2 hands.
Right.
So they were using 2 hands to catch. the same way, when you go to throw a dodgeball, no one just like half throws it. You kind of wind up, use your legs, use your whole body, and you let it rip.
Launch that puppy.
And so they started using their legs when they're throwing. And then the last one, this was the one that the moms on the team were happy about, is that, you know, kids are afraid of the ball a little bit. And so I let them throw a dodgeball at me and they laughed. I'm like, did it hurt me? They're like, no. I'm like, you're okay, right? Like, yeah. I'm like, great. We're going to throw dodgeballs at you, and the world's not going to end if you hit it or you don't.
Yeah.
The moms volunteered so fast to start chucking dodgeballs at the kids. They normally are having a great time. They're talking, they're relaxing. And I was like, moms, you want to help throw dodgeballs at the kids? And they popped up.
Yes, I do.
But, yeah. So my dad hacks always win and use dodgeball to teach baseball.
I love that so much, man.
That's awesome.
Well, I've actually got a little bit of a story on you and yours, and that was part of what I wanted to just roll into my dad hack. So every dad worth their salt has got some kind of dad hobby, right? Whether it's barbecue or lawns or whiskey or what are some other ones, golf, or there's like the stereotypical dad hobbies.
But hobby, you mean escape?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure all those things you mentioned, like,
I'm going to go stand in the backyard away from loud children. Yeah, exactly.
Not be around you.
Well, your dad introduced me to my dad hobby in barbecue.
Yeah.
So all those years ago, do you know this story?
I don't know. I don't think I've heard this one. Yeah.
Years ago, you've heard us talk all the time about Rotaract on the podcast. Right. You were an old head Rotaractor, and during Rockin' Ribs, the barbecue festival, your dad would come in and help do the barbecue for the club, because I assume nobody in the club knew what they were doing, and your dad needed to come help, kind of deal, or he just really liked it.
He was looking for a hobby away from us. Just proves your point.
Yeah, I get it. But he continued to do that a couple of years after you left the club, just because I think he really enjoyed it and was. But he was ready to be done the year I joined the club, and he was very kind to me, sitting down and being willing to, like, okay, here's exactly how I do it. Here's the steps. Get your pen out, write all this down. And so he gave me, I still have the playbook.
Yeah.
And it's a literal playbook written out in a little red binder that I keep with me all the time, that I use for my barbecue stuff that your dad gave me. Yeah. Talking about dad hacks came from somebody else's dad.
That's funny.
No, we grew up. I love even a grill is still one of my happy places. It doesn't matter if you have time to slow cook it or you're just throwing it on there quickly. Right. It's still one of my happy spots is grilling, and I definitely get that from my dad.
I love that.
And even with my kids, it's the same way. Is I can ask them what are the first two things about grilling, and they'll say number one is clean your grill, and number two is time everything. And so even my kid, they're 5 and 8, and they're already like, again, and we've always had like a toy grill on the deck. So when I grill, they're out there grilling. Yeah. So yeah,
it sounds like there's a lot of teachable moments in your household. I like that a lot,
dude. I love my boys, and as much as I might joke around, I think anyone that knows me, like, I'm all in, and I do worry about baseball and number of bedtimes I miss, but my wife tells everyone, she's like, when he's around, he's all in, he's captive. She goes, I don't know if he has a bad day, because he shows up like I show up, I'm bam 100% in as dad.
That's awesome.
Well,
good for you.
And that was one thing that really stuck out to me. Me and you were talking at the end of last season. I think your oldest son brought his basketball team to one of the games. And we were there talking, and I think they were in the bounce house at the time. And you were like, man, like, I love my job, I love baseball, but I live to be a dad and just hang out with my kids. So you're like, I can't wait for off season to hit so that I can spend even more time with my kids. And that stuck with me ever since you said that to me, like, 6 months ago or however long ago it was.
Well, and I think it's one thing to say it, but you try to back it up.
Yeah.
When I started dating my wife, we started dating in season. And even before it got crazy serious, I told her that, hey, I understand this job's got a lot of time. Right. It's like, but just know I choose you. Like, if you tell me to quit, and I still stand by this, if she wants me to quit, I'll quit. Yeah. I've started having conversations with the older one if he still thinks it's okay to for me to have my job, and he says yes. But I talked to my wife about it, talked to my oldest son. In a couple of years, I'll talk to both kids. But it's also given me an opportunity to try to change the culture of our organization to make sure it's not just allowing me to go try to be a good present parent, but to encourage the rest of our staff to do the same thing. Awesome. And so really, I think the last few years we've tried to change our culture to promote people and encourage them to be a good parent versus that guilt people have of like, should I miss the kids thing? Should I miss the job thing?
Right.
And I think we've really done a good job to reshape our culture, because that's that's what I want. I mean, that's where
Yeah.
because I also know that. Again, I know the Cardinals are going to the wayside real fast if boys or my wife says so. So you got to do everything you can to keep that balance.
Good for you. That's
Absolutely.
cool. I love that. Well, my dad hack was not near as good as any of those, so I'm just going to come right out and say it. I am not afraid, and I would encourage other people to do the same. Don't be afraid to use your kids as an excuse to get out of things, so that you can then go hang out with them.
Yeah.
And I use it selfishly because I don't want to do a thing, but then that also then gives me the opportunity to go spend more time with my daughter and wife,
Right.
which I'm really excited about. But like, there have been several instances where I'm like, sorry, I couldn't get a babysitter.
Yeah. Well, no, you absolutely do that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's great.
Yeah.
I'd
Prioritize
to get out of things or to leave things early. I'd be lying if
I
I
take
told
advantage of
you.
that
I'd be
hardcore.
lying if I told you that weren't any situation where I was like, man, this networking event kind of sucks. Man, I'm so sorry. I just got a call from the babysitter. She needs to jet. I'm gonna go ahead and I gotta go home, get to my kid.
Yeah.
I'm fine using that excuse all the time.
I'm going to give you a next step, Dad hack.
Please bring it.
Plan ahead to do it. You just,
It's a preemptive strike.
No, you just tell people, hey, I'm out at 4 because I'm
Yeah.
heading home to see my kids. Haven't been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's planned in advance. It is premeditated.
Sure. I love that.
Oh, it is very premeditated and set the boundaries. But I started doing that even with events. So for pre-kids, I would MC a lot of events, and I loved it. It was a fun excuse for me and my wife to get dressed up. But then when we had kids, I set the boundary like, hey, if you want me to do this event Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I think that's a part of my job as I'm in. But
Sure,
after
yeah,
that,
yeah.
then if it's in the weekends or evenings, I'll charge you because if I can't be with my kid, I'm going to take that money I make and put it into their
Right.
college savings.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
set those boundaries and make it premeditated.
Yeah,
man.
and that was
next level.
I love it. That's where I am. What about you, DC?
Yeah.
I like this segment. This is good.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
good.
I will say we have become better dads.
Oh, for
completely
sure.
selfishly.
Yeah.
From this segment alone.
Yeah.
We've got 59 now episodes of guys coming to us saying, "Here's the best advice I ever got."
Yeah.
Well, that means I've got 59 pieces in my back pocket that I
That's
just
legit.
love. I
Yep.
love it. Love it. Love it. What about you?
No, mine is the work that you put in with your kids at 1, 2, 3 years old. It might not seem that it's paying off at the time, but it really is. And I'm talking about like discipline, manners, helping out, all this stuff, because it's kind of the nice thing about having 2 kids now. Brody, he's again in the throes of terrible twos. And me and Allie, we've been, I don't want to say reminiscing because that's not the right word, but I guess remembering when Liam was going through these terrible twos, right? And we were like doing all this stuff to, again, try to teach him discipline and manners and all this stuff. And it just doesn't feel like it's, we're gaining any ground with it, right?
It's not working.
Yeah, we're like, why are we even doing this? It's not working. He's not, there's no immediate gratitude for it, right? Well, now, Liam is past that stage, and he's not perfect by any means, but he is a really well-mannered kid. He's a good listener, all that stuff. And so, we're really realizing, we're like, what we were doing whenever he was younger, that actually he was retaining some of that
Sure.
information.
Great.
Getting to see it later.
It is
Yeah.
helping. So even though it doesn't seem like it's working at the time, keep doing it. It will pay off.
So you're saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel? Because I'm in the
Yeah,
middle of
there
that
you go.
tunnel right now.
Yeah. You are.
Sometimes you see those lights.
Yeah.
And the first time that they can, and it sounds crazy, but on a weekend, turn a TV on or get themselves food without waking you up. The first time that one of the 2 of us didn't have to wake up for that, it was like, one of us slept in. Like, I mean, it really was. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you actually see it
Yeah.
paying off. And I think when you can actually start sleeping in a little bit because they can function as normal human beings,
Yeah.
man, it feels good.
Yeah.
Right.
We just got out of we just put her into the big kid bed. And so right now it's just poke mom or dad on the forehead at 5:30 in the morning, and that's the extent of it. So I cannot wait for that. I'm so ready for that extra hour and a half.
Okay, I've got a story for that.
Please, please bring it on.
So my wife and I are just dead asleep, and all of a sudden there's this screaming, and it's
no.
like this. Our child is on the bed, and Andy's screaming, "Ska buddy, ska buddy!" We jump out of bed. We're like, "What's going on?
Yeah.
What's the matter?" He goes, "Oh, nothing. That's just a Pokemon." And so we had to have a discussion.
Burned into your brain
Oh
now.
my God! Right. So I wish he had just touched my shoulder and woken me up. Oh no, he jumped on the bed screaming "Sky Bunny." So
It's kind of like Danny's story from the other day. He like rolls into their Vin rolls into Danny and their room and he goes, "Hey Dad, hey buddy, what's up? Are you what's up? Oh, nothing. I just wanted to tell you a story," and then proceeds to tell him a story at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like, give me a freaking break, buddy. We talked a little bit about work-life balance or maybe even like dad life balance, if you want to say it a different way. I wondered if have you talked as much about that as you want? Have you gotten all the details out on that you wanted to? Because I don't want to leave that out, because I think as two guys that have 9-to-5s, but that also do a bunch of networking and extracurricular things, it's something I'm super specific about.
I can dive in more. It's really whatever you guys wanted, whatever you guys have on your list. I'm open book, so we can roll.
Sure. Well, I'd be curious if there was anything else specifically about like work life, because I know that the ball season is really weird. Because my Rusty Meeks, who works for the Little Rock Travelers, he's my best friend from college. He talks about their schedule a lot and how baseball is such a hard time of year for everybody on the staff. But he chooses to be at every single game, and I don't know if that's a choice or not. I think if you're the GM, you pretty much have to be at as much of those games as possible.
It's a choice.
Is it really? I wondered about that, so I wanted to ask about that.
Let's go into it then.
So are you at most games, or how does that work? What does that look like for you, and how did you and your wife kind of choose to make that balance? What's that look like?
No, I think for me, the balance side of it, you have to make it. You make choices, and I really, you start being a parent before you have kids, because you start having to value other people. You start having to value a spouse. And what I remember is that when I met my wife, it changed the way I drew boundaries. And it made it where instead of just finishing the project, that it was like, no, I'm going to go home. And I'd be still a little bit late. But then what happens is when you get daycare, you have to pick up by that time.
There's a hard out.
There's a hard time.
Yeah.
I think it rebalances you then. But I think for me, what I can remember, one of those moments was telling my boss to his face that I'm going home to mow. And, I mow on the weekends. I'm like, I'm working the games. I'm here all the time. Like, I'm not spending my family time to mow. And so I started, I think he was shocked. I looked at him in the eye and told him that.
Yeah.
But I think that, to me, that's where that balance starts, is that you have to be confident in yourself, but you have to start communicating it. And it shouldn't matter if you're the boss or not. And then ultimately, sometimes if things go bad, you have a choice to make. And that's where, I feel confident that I know where my choices would be. And you have to communicate that with an employer. But if you understand, if they tell you to kick the curb, that's an option.
Yeah.
But I think as far as the games go, I tried to build out our staff to set an example, but also to have intelligent redundancy. And so
well said.
I do think that the old baseball model, it was every employee, every game.
Yeah.
And I had to work to break the trend. But even when I worked to break it, what was interesting is I told people they could take time off, and none of them did it. And so I had to start doing it to prove to them it was okay.
Yeah.
But then even further, as I put it on our homestand sheet. So when you're communicating schedules, we just have a line that says game off. And it's not a question. There's not a justification. You just balance yourself.
Sure.
And if I saw someone filling it out every game, I would ask a question. But I'm actually more likely to be like, hey, there's not enough names on this list. Why aren't we balancing this? And part of that as a company, you have to be prepared. Someone has a funeral, they go. They don't check if they can.
Yeah,
and so we prepared for it that way. But I think I started working on it before I had kids. When I had kids, you have to be unashamed to know where your priorities are, because I think kind of your dad advice too is you are setting they're retaining those things they learn early. One of those moments for me that felt really good was that I love decorating for the holidays, like
awesome.
most holidays.
Yeah.
But when it gets to Christmas,
so every holiday, it's not just Christmas?
Christmas is the biggest.
Okay.
I spend about 3 days to do the exterior, and then I do the interior
Drive by your
just as much.
house.
My son was so proud. We made like the SGF Citizen. We were on their like tour. They put our
sweet.
neighborhood.
I love
and
it.
My house was the one pictured, and so my
awesome.
my son felt victory and he liked it. But whenever we do that, I do that, and I started changing how I decorated, because it used to be I would not decorate until after Thanksgiving because that's what I believed in, and I'm not going to do this. Well, I started changing how I decorating because I realized I was choosing decorating over time with kids. So I changed my style to start a little earlier to not miss out on dad time. Well, then as soon as my Christmas stuff is up, I go to my parents' house and I put up lights on their roof and I put out their outside lights for them. And we do it so that the kids are there with their grandparents, they're playing, so I don't feel like they're just, being shoved in front of a TV or forgotten about. Like, they're getting quality family time. But we were driving home, and my spirit animal son, he says to me, he goes, Dad, whenever you get older, me and Tyson will come to your house and put up your lights for you.
Awesome.
And I mean, my wife's like, "Are you gonna cry?" I'm like, "I might." Like, it's tough, just because it was like it resonated that it's like help your parents, and it was just like, but you have to be so purposeful and able to do it, and it's hard. It's hard to break a mold because so much of your success early is by pressing harder than others, and I think instead you have to look for ways to be efficient and choose to press the idea of being a good parent and to be involved and to be captive and to be caring, to go on field trips. And that's what I did. I mean, I just did that with my son's class was telling
You mentioned
our staff.
that. Yeah. Tell us about the field trip.
So field trip, we go to the zoo. My son is, my younger one, Tyson, he's in pre-K at Elizabeth Ann Seton. And so we go on the field trip and we get off the bus, and I have a voice that can be loud and carry. And so right they off the bus, like, hey, could you get all the kids together for a picture? So I get all the kids lined up, start moving them around. And the other part, key to good pictures with kids, is every kid, what do they look at when they go to take pictures?
The teacher?
They look at their parent.
Oh, well said.
When there's 10 cell phones out, that means half the kids are looking around.
That's so true.
I always you stand in the middle camera you want, like, hey, everyone look right here. So we have great pictures of the whole class looking right.
Attaboy, nice. I'm stealing that one too. It's full of dad hacks.
But then the teacher's like, okay, students, like, Mr. Reiter's going to be the leader for the field trip. It's like it's like no one can get in front of him. So it just, the teacher, I've been around and helped enough with my older son and then with my younger son. It was pretty cool that she trusted me. So I literally was leading 25-year-olds through the zoo, like, all right, kids, here's where, like, just leading the pack. We're ready to go to the next one. And I loved every minute of it. But I did it during work hours, and I told our staff that, I just feel like one of the things I've realized, you have one shot. You have one shot to coach T-ball, and then it's gone.
Yep.
You have one shot to go to a field trip with 25-year-olds to a zoo, and it's gone. And I think that I'm very vocal about that with my coworkers, with my friends, and I think it's, dad should be more unashamed of it. Of setting the principle, I am doing this and doing it proudly.
Good for you.
Well, I think a lot of dads too, they get ashamed because traditionally dads are supposed to support the family financially, right? And so you're like, well, if I'm not at work or if I'm not doing something for work, well, my family's going to struggle, financially or whatever. So sometimes you almost put work over being a parent, right? So, but like you said, it's being efficient. Don't be ashamed to be a parent, because I mean, you said it perfectly there. You got one shot. You know? And so don't screw it up.
I think you definitely hear dads say this line. I don't know if I've ever heard a mom say it, but dads will say, I can't do that. I got to go home and babysit my kids. And every time I just kind of, it's a cringeworthy comment to me.
Don't like that.
Because it's,
don't like
you're not
that at all.
babysitting, you're parenting.
Yeah.
Like, and I've, moms, they get a bad rap. I mean, if me and the boy's mom does the same thing, hers was expected, and I'm immediately
you get an attaboy, right? You get a pat on the back,
right? And so I just think dads, we need to build each other up and take more pride of that. You don't babysit, you parent.
Well, and it's one of those have to versus get to attitudes,
there
right?
You go.
Blessed to,
DC.
right? Or even better, blessed to. Yeah,
it's great.
Well, and I think that's a little bit of a generational thing too, right? Like guys in their 40s, guys in their 30s, now guys in their 20s, we understand that thought process, that these are our kids just as much as they are my wife's. Maybe my dad's generation and something around there, it was a little more of that, like, babysitting the kids thing, where, like, if you saw dad out with the kids at the grocery store, everybody'd be like, "Oh, are you helping mom out today?" It's like, no, these are just my kids. I'm hanging out with my kids today. Leave me alone.
You're right, and I'm sure there's research to back up that the percentage of both parents in the workforce versus one parent at
100%.
home.
Yep.
And then the same way, then, the incomes, they became more equal. And I never hesitate to be like, yeah, like my wife, she's a loan officer. She, especially the last several years, she's made more money than me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm great with that situation. That is awesome. But I think there's still a struggle for some guys that don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
And me, I'm like, no. Like, if anyone needs to pull more of theirs, that's going to be me.
Yeah, I would love that. I love that thought process.
But I think it's still the time is still time. And if both parents are working, then everything's got to be split. And I'm sure it does come into the generational side of what percentage were in the workforce, then not just in the workforce, but then more equal incomes, and
Sure,
it's a different ballgame.
very much so. Well, you mentioned something. So Derek and I were joking about this beforehand, but you mentioned it specifically, so I'm just going to ask it. You were talking about having, working with your employees and learning from them, and you became a parent before you were a parent because you were learning to work with all these different people. Have you noticed any traits or anything, and I'm not asking you to call any individuals out, but like any traits or anything that you've seen in some of the folks that have worked for you that you are now trying to teach your kids against, or trying to prohibit them from doing, or trying to keep them like, hey, here's a bad habit that I saw somebody do at the at our place of work. Let's try to avoid that. Anything like that specific that comes up to you?
I'd have to think specifically, because in general, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And I feel like that started with when you're younger, you can learn the most from the best and worst of every situation.
100%, right?
And the way I became a manager, I think, is a combination of seeing the best things that I wanted to emulate. But the hard part about that is that when people are good and it's natural, you don't always catch it. But I learned so much from the really bad. And I think watching parents, I think I watched the ones whose kids were structured versus the ones that weren't. I watched the ones who wanted to put their kids in sports to win at all cost versus the ones who were trying to develop them. I think that I absolutely have watched that. And I think, to me, I think I'm more in a cycle of wanting to break people from having guilt to not be there because they're at kids' events. I think that's probably the biggest one for me that I'm set on, as far as like learning the goods and the bads, because I think part of that's just you take it all in and you have to process it. And it depends on who the mom is, who the dad is, what's the situation with siblings, what's and I had someone point this out that it gave me a lot of awareness that I appreciated, was that I have a job, and I've always kind of had a job that's a lot more flexible than someone that's in a strict time in, time out type of position. So when my kids are sick, I'm more flexible to figure it out than someone who has to be there at a certain time. So I think it's given me more empathy than probably what I would have naturally had, just going through it. And I think the biggest reason why is every one of us gets our butts kicked. Every single one of us.
Every day.
We can't control the tantrum. We can't control when they decide to go to the bathroom when you're potty training.
Yeah.
You can't decide these things, and you realize no matter what powerful position you may think they're in, if they're a parent, they've lost.
You can get humbled very quickly.
So quickly.
It takes one kid pissing themselves in the middle of a store, and then it's the world is upside down.
I've got a great story about that too. So we were potty training our first kid. You know, it's they always say boys are tougher than girls, first of all. And so we went to the Cardinals game. And we're at a game, and we're telling our kid, like, you got to go to the bathroom. And if you have an accident, you're going home. And we're going to go to the bounce houses. And he's like, I want to do this. Okay, do you need to go to the bathroom first? It says no. And he pisses all over the bounce house.
Oh, no.
Right. So
so it's not just a him problem, it's an everybody problem.
So we clear everyone out. Our staff is like, oh, it's okay. And I'm like, I'm cleaning this up. They're like, no, we can have someone else. I'm like, no, my kid's the one that did it. So our staff loved seeing me climb
Where's
the
the
bounce
bleach?
house.
Give me the bleach and the rag.
With rags and cleaner to like clean up the bounce house. But then as we're leaving, it's like, okay, buddy, you got to go home. And he is kicking and screaming because he does not want to leave. And especially when he's young, he'd always say, I want to go to the ball game. It wasn't stadium, Hammondsfield Cardinals. Like, I don't want to leave the ball game. I love the ball game. It's like, we told you that you had to go to the bathroom. And so pissing in a bounce house at Hammondsfield was literally the last like accident he had like that. it broke him.
Oh, wow.
Because he was so upset that we backed it up that we were going to leave.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was one of the worst tantrums I remember him throwing because he didn't want to leave the stadium.
Yeah.
But as far as potty training goes, it was the
It
best
worked.
thing that could have happened.
It worked.
It was amazing.
Win at all costs, like you said earlier.
Win.
You know, we're like,
I
you're
win.
going home,
You're
dude.
going home. Well, again, I believe if you not arguing if you should spank or not, but if you tell a kid you're going to spank him, you better back it up.
Sure.
If you tell him 5 minutes and you're leaving, it's got to be 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Stick to your guns.
got to win.
Well, there was that thing that somebody said to me at one point that you don't ever get caught in a lie with your kids, and I think it's kind of that same thought process where it's like, hey, listen, don't ever, because as soon as you get caught in a lie, then all of a sudden all that credibility that you spent all these years building up is now in question.
Yeah.
And it's now gone.
Well, I think as an adult, think of it like a job interview.
Sure.
If you catch someone in a lie in a job interview, do you believe any of their other answers?
Never again.
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't believe a single answer they say.
No. Yeah. What about, not to really kind of change topics here because you're kind of already hitting on this, but I know, like, growing up, one of my good friends, he had in their backyard, they had they called it a barn, but it was basically an indoor basketball court.
Yeah.
And I was
Sweet.
like, this is the coolest thing ever. This kid's just living the life, right? I mean, he can play whatever the weather's like, and no wonder he was awesome at basketball, right?
Yeah.
Well, your kids, they can one-up him. They got access to a whole professional baseball stadium.
There's an indoor training
We've
facility.
had fun there.
So, I mean, talk a little bit more about that. I mean, do your kids, are they just like feel like they're just living the life, like having access to the field, to to dugouts, to training facilities? I mean, all that stuff.
There's a lot of ways to go with this. And what I would first start by saying is that we don't press our kids. I think people would be surprised. I did not have them hitting off the tee early. I didn't have them like playing catch. I mean, honestly, the first time my kid went to a basketball practice, I texted my wife and said I failed as a father because he was so far behind all the other kids. But I say that because it's like, as much as I am around that, I have not forced that on them. I do believe in playing multiple sports, and so one of our oldest one says that he and again, you even hear like the top tier athletes talking about
100%.
it. Like
Yeah,
Wayne
yeah.
Gretzky's talking about playing
Every coach in the
shortstop.
world. Yeah.
JJ Watt's talking about playing other sports. Anyway, but he's like, I just don't want to play soccer right now. And my answer was, no, you're going to play soccer. It's like, right now we want you playing multiple sports. It's like, but when you get older, we will have a conversation if you want to stop.
Which of these do you want to do? Sure.
And he had it was great, but it didn't give into the immediate gratification. It was just like, there's a logical conversation. So anyway, I'm not, I think people probably see me and I'm
Mr.
loud and
Baseball.
competitive, and I've been in baseball 20 years. I'm not pressing my kid on this.
Nice.
But as far as like the fun side of it, it's been great. I mean, it's just, he's had 8 birthdays, and 7 of the 8 birthdays have been at Hammond's Field because he has a summer birthday.
Sweet.
Oh, perfect.
I mean, come on, man.
When
That's
it's-
a no-brainer.
When it's
That's
rained,
awesome.
we move the practices to the indoor training facility.
Yeah.
And it's like the other parents get it, but the young kids have no idea. Like, they have none, and they're like, man, they're gonna get older and just realize like how lucky they were.
For sure.
But but even now we've started running it, and so I've made it a point when I build out the league dues, I at least have a little bit, just so that there's some sort of like equity into it. But I think when they get older, they might realize it. But right now, it's just a giant playpen.
Yeah.
During COVID, when things were shut down, I would take them to the stadium and we'd play on the jungle gym. When we've had events for Halloween and Christmas, my kids have been able to go to it.
Love that.
It's fortunate, but I also, hope, especially as they get older, that I know I still have a job to do. I can take off some games, can't take off all the games.
Right.
But what I can do is be working and stop and see them for a while.
100%.
And so my office, I have a shower in my office. So at the games, we bring in the pajamas, and so the kids shower at the stadium, and then they're in their pajamas for the ride home. So it's
Man.
I
Dad hack right there.
I definitely have utilized that. I would not say that I haven't, but I also want to be very clear. I don't press my kids on those sports. And
Yeah.
right now they're 8 and 5. They have no business.
Too early.
They have no business trying to pick one sport. They
Right.
have no
We don't
business
know.
being driven. I mean, I'm more likely to want to make sure they're getting good grades than what are your sports.
Yep.
Because again, they're all going to change. I mean, the kids, their bodies, their interest levels, they're going to change. And just right now, I'm really big on teaching the love, the enjoyment, the life lessons. And so when I talked about our 3 rules of coaching, we actually use those 3 rules in our household of listen good, try hard, have fun. When they go to school, what are the 3 rules? Listen good, try hard, have fun. And what's really funny is the one that kids always remember
Stealing
first.
that.
I know.
What's
Just
rule
saying
one?
it right now, stealing it.
That's I've had one of my coworkers. He started coaching his baseball team that way. He changed around the order of the wording, which is fine, but it's still the same premise.
Right.
Listen good, try hard, have fun.
Stealing that. It's like play like a champion today at the Fighting Irish. That's just going to live across the top of Elsie's store. Yeah, we're taking that home. That's awesome.
But it does help a lot. Just it simplifies everything, and it helps them. We're not trying to value sports over other stuff. Just I don't want that.
Totally get it. Totally get that.
Especially at this age. What about have they been able to meet? Because I know, you guys have had some big name players.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Like, they got like Yachty.
Had they got to play
Wainwright.
catch with Yachty?
Is there
So
some of the benefits here?
No, they were a little too young when some of that happened.
Okay.
Now I did take
I guess
them.
that's true.
Yeah, so I just took them 2 years ago. I took them to their first St. Louis Cardinals game for the first time 2 years ago. And I cringed when I did it a little bit. That's my wife's fault. But then last year we did take him to the last game for Adam Wainwright. And one of those special dad moments that I'll always have was the game that he got 300 is that we let the boys like stay up late. We're watching vintage Wainwright.
Awesome.
Like we're watching the press conference together. And so the kids really got into like, that's Adam Wainwright. He's my favorite Cardinal. So that was really their first ever favorite player. So I actually
that's awesome.
bought them. It was the first. I did not grow up ever with an authentic jersey. I actually went out and got my kids like the authentic Wainwright jerseys. They've loved Wainwright. The last game of the year, he's like on the field and we're all at the game together. And my oldest son is just sitting with me. He's like, Dad, this makes me want to cry. It's like,
Me too. Yeah, me too. But
I
not
was
until
crying.
you said that.
I was crying. No, I'm a crier. I'm a bad crier. I'm emotional and I'm okay with that. But so Wainwright. So I know that like right now with the concert that's coming up for the first time, they're starting to ask more questions. And so it's like my oldest one, Dad, I heard there's Adam Wainwright's playing at a concert, and I think you need to buy tickets for my entire class, which I love, though. It wasn't just like about him. It was about his friends.
Good for him. Yeah. Good for
so
him.
This might be the first time that I really like, I'm gonna make sure the boys meet Adam Wainwright.
Yeah.
So that'll probably be
Awesome.
That is so
I
cool.
got to make sure of that one.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. I mean, there's so many cool guys coming through there, so I can only imagine.
No, but it's I still want them to make sure they respect the game and they respect what it is. I don't want them to. I don't take my job for granted, and I don't think that they should. I'll actually say probably the person I have to remind the most of that is my own dad. It's like,
really?
yeah, oh yes, he's proud, but it's like, Dad, calm it down, buddy. Like this job is not guaranteed in perpetuity. Like I know you enjoy coming into my office before the game, but it's just like. No, so yeah. So my dad, that I guess my older or younger son wanting to only be in a box. There's
You got some bougie folks
It's-
around you,
oh
pal.
my
That's
gosh.
all it is.
That's pretty hard for me, man. That is not my jam. That is I'm an everyday person. I like being around all people. So
You put something on your questionnaire that I'm really excited to learn about. It just said the introduction of Guys Night. Tell me about Guys Night in your household.
So
what does
guys
that mean?
Guys night. So I decided, I love my family time. I love being in, and even we do like simple movie nights. Like it's like whether we're eating as a family, just I love that family time. So when my wife wants to go do something, it's like every now and again I want to make it a big deal, so it's just not a normal night. So the first time we did this, she was going to be gone for a couple days, and I'm like, all right, guys, are you ready for Guys Night? And they're like, what's Guys Night? It's like, we're just going to go out and we're going to do whatever we want. And like, really? I'm like, yeah. I go, how about, do you guys want to go eat ice cream for dinner?
Mind blown. Right?
So we
can do that?
So we go and we get ice cream for dinner, and we send a video to my wife, and it's letting the boys talk, like, it's guys' night, like, we're here having ice cream. And so they said this. We said this to my wife. So her and her friends get this, just like, oh my gosh. So then after we go to guys' night, it was like, okay, well, do you guys think we should get a movie? Yeah. So we go like buy a movie at Redbox or something, which by the way is a really good deal. It's a dad hack. If you go to purchase the kids movies there, it's good because every now and again they go off the streaming services, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we buy
Very
a movie,
true.
kids are all pumped, and so it's like we ate some fruit, some popcorn, and then we ate pizza instead of like a dessert. So we were having pizza. And
Way to
the
go,
guy's
Dad.
like, hey, I
Way to
don't
go,
want to
Dad.
have to wear my pajamas. Like, I just want to wear my underwear. I'm like, yeah, go for it. So
Guys'
like,
night. Guys' night.
So they send a video to my wife like, we're watching a movie and we're eating pizza late in our underwear because it's guys' night. And so they had all this fun. And the next morning,
So much fun.
it was like we went and got donuts together for breakfast. And it was just kind of this like fun, like, instead of it just being another weekend, trying to have it as a fun thing. So then they were like, we want to do a guys' night again. So now they have it on their mind. And we had talked about some of our friends, Jake, his son Leif, my friend Foch, like, okay, next time we have a guys' night, we're going to try to invite them. And my wife was going to be doing something. I'm like, you guys think we should have another guys' night? They're like, guys' night, but we got to invite Jake and Leif and Foch. So they're ready to party. And it was the same thing. It's like we ate ice cream for dinner. We went and did the all-you-can-play for an hour at Chuck E. Cheese. They had grilled hot dogs for dessert.
Dessert.
And it was just like this fun way, I felt like, to kind of connect with them, treat them like little men. And like what I've told them is like, okay, I've told the older one, like, okay, next time if you think you want to eat steak, we're gonna go get steaks. And they'd rather have grilled hot dogs.
Right,
than
of
steaks
course.
way
At
in their
this
life.
point, it's a little different.
Yeah, but it's like I want to keep building this to where it's like I want to start young with this like purposeful night that's guys' night. It's fun. You break being a parenting. Oh, I forgot one more little part of guys' night that my wife mocked. So after we ate ice cream, we went to the at-home store to look at all the Christmas decorations. And so she was like, guys' night, you go look at decorations, really? And
don't hate the player, hate the game.
But when we were there, we saw a 20-foot inflatable elf, and we thought me and the boys thought it was the coolest thing. So we keep saying we're gonna get it. We're gonna get. My wife's like, you better not buy a 20-foot inflatable elf. I did not, but my parents bought me one for my birthday. Thanks guys' night.
That's so good. Well, and I
awesome.
love that you're really like allowing them. It's kind of like you hear parents do like Yes Day or something, right? Like there's a holiday around it or there's an event around it. You're making it a big fun thing that they will forever remember, right? Like you're absolutely creating core memories right then and there. That's so cool.
It's fun, but it's also starting the traditions now, and whatever that is, and even if it's only once a year that we do that, I mean, it'll be something they look forward to and want to invite other friends and do that, and it's
so
great.
cool.
I mean, it's been great.
And I love that you're inviting buds too.
Oh,
I love
yeah,
that.
right.
That's so
I
cool.
hadn't even thought about that part of it.
Well, and even I can't verify this, but I know like we had one of my son's best friends spend the night, and it was kind of like the first time in the class. Well, some of the kids, they're a little nervous, didn't want to start, and so then they found out the same kid was coming over. Another kid came over, and it was his first sleepover. Well, then another kid, it took him 2 tries because he got a little nervous, but he wanted to have a first sleepover. Well, then when he found out, they were telling the other people, so his first sleepover ended up being 5 kids from the baseball team all over at my house, and then plus little brother. So they had 6 boys having us spend the night, and it was great. And it's like all the other parents are like, "You are insane." And I loved every minute of it.
Sure.
And even my wife was like, "Oh no, this isn't. We didn't invite them. This is a Dan
problem.
He's
Dan
crazy."
created this issue.
and it's but it's like, nope. I'll go. Donuts in the morning. You stay up late. You have a little fun. So I just know I want them to have those great friendships. And,
Sure.
I also think that if you include your kids now, my hope is they'll want to include me later.
Yep.
Right.
Preach. 100%.
Absolutely. That's the way. So my wife, she works a lot of weekends, a lot of Fridays. So we kind of do not to your extent, but I'm gonna steal a lot of that because I love those ideas.
I want to rewatch this entire episode. Just go, all right, I'm taking notes.
But we call it Boys Day, right? Because
Yeah.
she's gone all day. So we're doing stuff throughout the day and just fun stuff so that they're not really focused on mom's leaving, mom's not around. It's Boys Day. We're having fun.
It's an event.
But kind of throw a wrench in that. You know, we're going to have a daughter here in a few months. So I'm like, we can't call it
Send her to Uncle Bryant's house.
Well, I'm like, we can't call it Boys Day anymore,
We'll
right?
have a
So it's
girls'
like we
day over
gotta
here.
include her now too. So we're trying to figure out, like, you know, how do we incorporate, you know, two brothers and a
Ooh,
sister
yeah, that's
and
interesting.
all that.
You know, the hardest part for me, I think, is still dedicating that one-on-one time. Is to
definitely.
still like
He's talked about that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. And even now, you know, because we set the precedent of large group sleepovers,
It's only going to get bigger.
It's going to be. We have two of their friends actually going to do the same thing because now that they've done it, they want that for their birthday party.
Oh, yeah.
Ours wasn't even a birthday party; it was a random Friday.
Just a random Thursday night.
But now too, and so now like the older one's going to go to a sleepover, and it's like, okay, grandparents, like, do you want some one-on-one time with just him?
Ooh,
And
there
so
you go.
it's balancing that one-on-one time. It's tough, but it's important. And they're so different when their siblings aren't around.
Yeah.
So different.
100%. Very
Absolutely.
different. What about first diaper? You got any,
Yeah.
got any good stories about the first diaper change?
I do. So when you know, first of all, when I've always wanted kids, and you know, when we had the first kid, I was all in when she was pregnant, and you know, one of the things I tried to do was, you know, women go through a lot. I don't think they get enough credit. So what I kind of set out was like, okay, every morning I'm going to wake up and make you a healthy breakfast, and that may sound normal, except by that point in our marriage, either one of us had only cooked each other breakfast one time because we're not morning people,
Sure.
you know? And so I woke up every morning to do that because it was like, I wanted to be all in, like a woman is all in as soon as she gets pregnant. And so wanted to do that. So then we go through everything, went to all the appointments with her, just did everything I could. We go to she has the baby. It's just an unbelievable, amazing experience. And then we're in the room and the first bowel movement happens. And I'm like, I'm on this mission. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm all in on this. I'm going to change the first one. And they're like, no, you don't have to do this.
It's meconium. Here it comes.
And so, yeah, I read about it. Trust me, I knew it. I was
experiencing it. Is totally different.
totally experiencing it.
Black tar. What is going on?
Man. So he's doing this, and I'm dealing with the issue at hand, and I'm doing this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, there goes more. And so like the nurse is in there, and so I'm giving a loud play-by-play, and so more starts coming out. So I'm getting a second diaper out. Then all of a sudden, then he starts peeing too. So he's peeing up. It's like, it's coming out everywhere. It's like, I'm trying to cover up, but I've got two diapers. How do you add a third diaper under this? And so the nurse ends up like, she's leaning against the wall because she is laughing so hard that she can't physically help. My wife is laughing and yelling at me to stop because it hurts. Because she's like, it hurts. I don't want to laugh right now. And I'm just giving this play-by-play of two different poops and two different times he starts peeing on me. And that was the first diaper.
Oh my god! I'm so glad that you experienced that, and that was not my experience.
I did not volunteer to do the first diaper on the second kid. I let the experts take that one.
Is there a nurse or somebody around here looking
20
at
more
me?
diaper changes to come. Yeah, you got that.
That's so fun. So we had a dad on before they had their kid. That it was our first pre-dad on, and so we were exactly right.
yeah.
And we were like, tell us all of your thoughts.
Yeah.
What are all your plans? What are all your expectations? So that we can dash them on the rocks.
Yeah, that's so
and,
great.
and then the other one was, he was like, well, what do you guys think I should do? I was like, be ready for the meconium. And Derek looks at me and she goes, and he goes, the hell is that? I was like, just go home and look it up, pal. You're going to want to be ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely the guy that wanted to read the books, find the right foods, read, like, even when we did like the dad class at the hospital, like, you know, do you have any questions? My hand's the only one going up.
Yep.
Like, I was, yeah.
I need to know
That was
1,000
me.
things. I need to know 1,000 things. Well, I don't want to get too far into this. This has been way too much fun, and I hate to. Frankly, I'm not entirely sure I want to follow this with this next segment. But what do you think we should go with next? Anything in
Probably the best part of the
It's Dad
episode.
Joke of the Week. All right, let's get into everybody's favorite part of the episode. Dan, did you bring a dad joke for us this time around?
No, I didn't.
Bring it on. I know.
No,
I know. I want to know why, because you said that ahead of time.
No, it's I make dad jokes, but I feel like it's conversational. It's like, here's
Impromptu.
an opportunity,
Yep.
and
So
I go
good.
with it.
Yeah.
And even now, it's like I tell stories, I laugh with people, I interact. I don't know if I know jokes.
A single
Like,
one,
I don't
sure.
know. So I will say though that there is a Dad Jokes Twitter account, and that is my go-to. So I would say
where all of these
less,
come from.
no less than 3 times a week, I find something and I send it to my wife. Like, oh hey, and so there's a Dad Jokes and there's an ultimate Dad Jokes.
Oh,
Ooh, I want one off the ultimate dad jokes list. That makes me very happy.
Yeah, and so that's I'll find one where you guys kind of go.
Perfect.
go
DC,
with
what'd you
yours
come
here.
up with while he's digging into
Well,
his
I figured
the
I had to
annals of
make it
history?
baseball related.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I should have
yeah.
thought of that.
So why don't baseball players join the union?
Why?
Because they hate strikes. They hate
That's pretty
strikes.
good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I should have brought a baseball, and that's why. Damn it! Why didn't I think of that? Why is it impossible to starve in the desert?
Why?
Because of all the sandwiches there.
Oh, there we go.
Sandwiches there.
So stupid.
Nice.
No, it's those kind of.
That was good.
But
That was good.
I was thinking about as soon as Dan started saying that, I was like, we had Matt Simpson on, Councilman Matt Simpson.
Oh, there's a pun guy.
That guy, all he did the entire episode
yeah.
was just
Let him
pepper
fly.
us.
Let
Just
him fly.
pepper us with like funny little dad jokes like that. It's
Yeah.
like, are you kidding me?
He is He's very intelligent and very quick-witted with the puns.
And that's
he
the thing,
likes,
he's
he
so
likes
freaking sharp.
his puns.
He's so sharp.
Yeah. And so unfortunately, in the Decent Dads podcast, I'm not able to load this.
It's
I'm
almost
trying
like
to-
we're in a
trying to
basement
dig
in
through
the
this
middle
one
of
there.
nowhere.
Here's the one I did. The last one I sent to my wife that
There
I
you go.
saw. You know what takes longer than a kid telling a story?
What's that?
Nothing.
That is, or the point to the story is the best part.
And the worst part is all of us are thinking of one kid that we know. So bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got one of those. Wrap it up, DC.
Dad, you want to hear a story?
Hey, Dad.
Well, we got to finish on our Decent Dad's motto, keeping the bar within reach. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, the whole point here is to build a community of dads. You know, share stories, share jokes, as we just did there. Share dad hacks, which Dan did a phenomenal job of today.
Go rewatch the entire episode.
I don't know.
Just the whole thing.
I'm gonna have to
Top to bottom.
count them all up after we watch it again. But yeah, so be sure and check out all of our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and be sure and listen to our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as well too.
We're
And-
all over the place, baby.
yeah, and if you have any good stories for us, any good jokes, any good dad hacks, share them with us. We'll ruthlessly steal them, but we'll give you credit.
We'll
too.
try to credit you too. Don't worry.
That's right. That's right.
But man, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Anything you want to plug? Anything at the park? Anything at all? I would just want to give you a second to
Yeah,
plug
you mentioned the
anything you want
concert.
to.
Yeah. coming up.
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned Adam Wainwright. I mean, we're really
So
excited
cool.
to have our first ever standalone concert at Hammond's Field. And I stand by my comment. I don't care if you don't like country music. I don't care if you don't like the genre of the artist.
Buy the ticket.
Come out because
Yeah.
we need to prove that we can be an outdoor concert venue. And so I'm just beyond excited about that.
What's the date on that?
Yeah, when is that?
Friday, May 31st.
Thank
So
you. Okay, perfect.
Even on a weekend, just to even make it a little bit
Yeah.
better for people. Not Memorial Day weekend either, so
Even
you
better.
have no excuse. But buy your tickets to see Adam Wainwright at Hammond's Field, first ever
yeah.
concert in stadium history.
I love it, man. Well, thank you for being here. And hey, last thing to say is way to go, Decent Dad,
Great job,
in the crew.
Good job, buddy.
Thanks for keeping
brother.
the bar low.
Keeping the bar within reach.
Within reach. See, I was sitting here thinking like the other part about that is like, okay, keep it within reach, but then raise your own damn bar. Like, better put. Come on,
Maybe that should be the second.
Yeah, part two.
That'll be
All
on the
right.
back of the
Subtitle,
t-shirt. That's on the
subtitle.
back of the t-shirt. So I guess we'll wrap this thing up here.
Let's do it.
All right, Decent Dads Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Coaches are screaming at refs. Coaches are screaming at kids. There's basketball teams where this past year at the field house, so we found a basketball program, and the coach the same way. It's like we're teaching skills. We're teaching them.
Yeah.
We're not coaching to win. And they had some kids that are behind, but they play them. So I don't know. I want our kids involved with sports that are about the process versus winning the 7-year-old championship. And I feel like sporting is really good for that. The basketball coach we found is good for that. When it's baseball, I'm doing that. Like, are there coaches like, how are we going to sit read? I'm like, because every kid needs to learn the skill to sit and cheer for their teammates. Like,
Sure.
Right.
it's and even last game we were playing a team that was doing some stupid stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we could do that." I'm like, "Don't like this. That's not. I don't know. We don't want our kids to learn that. Why are we gonna do it?"
Sure. Well,
So, by the way, have you ever seen a baseball game where you immediately give up on the play and just throw it to the pitcher to be done?
that's.
Never. But that's how.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. Yeah, I got it.
But that's how it's like. No, don't try to make an out. Just throw it to the pitcher to get the ball back in. It's like they're outfielders. They're not throwing to second or third base. It's just throw it to the pitcher so that it's over. And it's like the ball will still be on the infield and they're sending runners. I'm like, you never want them to do that in baseball.
That's not how that works. That's not how the game works.
So, but again, it's just like you want to make sure but it's hard, man. The competitive part of you.
Oh, I bet.
It's hard. And the same thing, like having kids that aren't as good, like, but you don't know how they're going to change in 3 years. So it's just.
That's my
it's
biggest
tough,
struggle.
man.
With
My dad tells the story nonstop, and I'll exclude the name because the guy's still around town. But he coached my little brother's baseball team, and my dad was a big baseball and basketball guy, so he was very involved in the baseball teams. But with my little brother, he wanted to take a step back, just because he wanted a second to let the kid be a kid and have somebody else be his coach. Learn how to have a coach that's not dad, because daddy coached all the teams for several years. Well, this guy was coaching, and dad didn't make it to the first couple of practices, working, whatever. So they get to the first game. My little brother's fast. He's on the hot corner. He's playing third base. And Drew was the fastest kid on the team, and that's why they put him at third base, and that didn't make any sense to my dad. So Drew gets this first ground ball hit right to him. Fields it perfectly, and Dad's so excited to see him tap it and throw. Nope, takes off running to first base. And it's because the coach had told him that's how you get an out. We're getting outs. Yeah. I don't care if we're doing it right. We're getting outs. We're going to win. And Drew did it two, maybe even for all 3 outs in the inning. And my dad goes goes over to the dugout and starts getting on my brother about it. And Drew goes, "Dad, that's what the coach told me to do.
Right.
This is not me." And Dad just had to walk away. He's like, "I'm not going to get in a fist fight with another dad over a little league baseball game."
Right.
But holy shit, he got Drew home, and he was like, "You will never do that again. I do not care what the coach says, and here's why."
Yeah.
This guy is teaching you the fundamentals of baseball wrong. I understand that winning, whatever, that's not what we're trying to do right now. We're learning the game, and this guy is teaching you the game wrong. Yeah. So because he's an ex-MLB guy, he wants to win. Yeah. And so he's going to unfucking believable.
When kids are getting involved, I think that's a find the coaching style, not the result. And
100%.